Ambassador Chenwei stood at the edge of the massive circular chamber, watching as the Galactic Council members took their seats with the casual arrogance of beings who had never known true surprise. The crystalline Altarians chimed softly to each other in what she had learned to recognize as condescending amusement. The towering vegan warcast clicked their mandibles in patterns that their translators rendered as barely contained laughter. "The humans wish to address the Council," announced Primarch Zethros, his voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of galactic politics. "Though I confess, I'm not certain why they believe their concerns warrant our attention." Chen kept her expression neutral despite the insult. Humanity had been members of the Galactic Council for exactly 73 days, barely a heartbeat in galactic terms, and every moment had been spent enduring the casual dismissal of species who viewed Earth as little more than a curiosity. "Honored Council," Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "I come before you today to discuss the ongoing territorial disputes in the Outer Rim sectors." A ripple of what the translators interpreted as amused chittering passed through the assembled delegates. "Child," interrupted Chancellor Vorix of the Centauri Republic, his 4 eyes glowing with patronizing warmth, "your species has been spacefaring for less than 2 centuries. We have been managing galactic politics since before your sun ignited nuclear fusion. What could you possibly contribute to such complex matters?" "Indeed," added Admiral Kresh of the Andromedan Fleet Command, her scaled features twisted in what might have been a smile. "Your entire navy consists of what? 3 dozen vessels? Our border patrol squadrons are larger than your entire military presence." Chen felt the familiar burn of controlled anger, the same sensation she'd experienced in every council session since humanity's admission. It was true that Earth's visible fleet was small, exactly 37 vessels that the galaxy knew about. What they didn't know was that those ships had been specifically designed to appear underwhelming. "Our fleet may be small," Chen acknowledged, "but we believe quality can compensate for quantity." This prompted outright laughter from several delegates. The Regalian representative's translator struggled to keep up with what appeared to be an extended comedy routine about human presumption. "Quality," wheezed Commodore Thax of the Sirius Trade Federation. "Your largest vessel masses barely 800,000 tons. Our merchant haulers are larger." "Quality," she says. Chen waited for the laughter to subside before continuing. "We would like to propose a demonstration of our defensive capabilities to better illustrate our commitment to galactic security." "A demonstration?" Primarch Zethros leaned forward, his interest genuinely piqued for the first time in the session. "You wish to show us your fleet exercises?" "Something like that," Chen replied evenly. Admiral Kresh's expression shifted to predatory interest. The Andromedans had been pushing for expanded military influence in the Council, and the chance to humiliate the newcomers while showcasing their own superiority was clearly appealing. "Very well, little human," Kresh said, her tone dripping with false magnanimity. "We accept your proposal. Shall we schedule this demonstration for next cycle? Give you time to polish your toys." "Actually," Chen said, checking her chronometer with theatrical precision, "I was thinking now would be perfect." The chamber fell silent. Chen could feel the attention of dozens of species focused on her with laser intensity. "Now?" Zethros repeated slowly. "Now," Chen confirmed. She touched her communicator with a gesture that appeared casual but had been practiced thousands of times. "Admiral Harrison, you may proceed with the demonstration." "Acknowledged, Ambassador," came the crisp reply that echoed through the chamber's communication system. "Demonstration commencing in 3, 2, 1. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber's massive viewing screens automatically activated, showing the exterior of the Council Station, a massive structure that orbited the neutral world of Concordia positioned to catch the light of the system's twin suns. Slowly, impossibly, those suns began to dim. The assembled delegates turned to look at the screens with growing confusion, then alarm, as the twin stars that had illuminated the Concordia system for billions of years gradually disappeared behind an expanding shadow. "What is this?" Primarch Zethros demanded, his usual composure cracking. Chen smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. That, honored Primarch, would be the Earth vessel Leviathan, our flagship. The shadow continued to expand across the screens until both suns were completely blocked out, plunging the system into an artificial night that should have been impossible. Emergency lighting activated throughout the station as automated systems responded to the sudden darkness. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Kresh, her earlier arrogance replaced by something Chen recognized as fear. "The mass readings, how large is that thing?" "Approximately 1,200 kilometers in length," Chen replied conversationally, "with a mass equivalent to a small moon. It's been stationed in the outer system for the past 6 months, conducting routine maintenance while we waited for council admission." 6 months? Chancellor Vorix's voice had risen to a pitch that his translator struggled to render in human audible ranges. "Our sensors never detected anything of that magnitude. Our stealth technology is quite advanced," Chen acknowledged. "We learned early in our spacefaring career that it's often advantageous to let others underestimate your capabilities." On the screens, smaller shapes became visible against the starfield as the Leviathan's escort fleet decloaked. Hundreds of vessels, each one larger than anything in Earth's official navy, arranged themselves in perfect formation around their massive flagship. "This is a trick," Admiral Kresh declared, though her voice lacked conviction. "Holographic projections, sensor ghosts." Her words were cut off as the Leviathan began to move, its massive bulk shifting with impossible grace as it maneuvered through the system. The artificial eclipse moved with it, keeping both suns blocked as the ship demonstrated maneuverability that should have been impossible for something of its size. "Our engineers are quite proud of the gravitic drive system," Chen commented as if discussing the weather. "It allows for precise spatial manipulation despite the vessel's mass, useful for both navigation and, as you can see, creating dramatic visual effects." The chamber erupted in panicked discussions as delegates frantically contacted their home governments and military commands. Chen noticed that several species representatives were already beginning to reassess their positions, with the careful calculation of career politicians realizing the wind had changed direction. "Why?" Primarch Zethros asked, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Why reveal this now? Why hide your true capabilities?" Chen turned to face him directly, her expression serious for the first time since the demonstration began. "Because for 73 days we've listened to this council discuss territorial disputes, trade wars, and resource conflicts with the casual assumption that might makes right. You've ignored our proposals for diplomatic solutions because you assumed we lacked the power to enforce them." She gestured toward the screens, where the Leviathan continued its stately progress through the system. "We wanted you to understand that we choose diplomacy not from weakness, but from strength. When we propose peaceful solutions to conflicts, it's not because we can't fight, it's because we'd prefer not to." The artificial eclipse began to end as the Leviathan moved beyond the sun's positions, allowing light to gradually return to the system, but the ship remained visible, a dark mass against the starfield that dwarfed everything else in the system. "The Outer Rim territorial disputes," Chen continued, "could be resolved through negotiated resource-sharing agreements that benefit all parties. The trade route conflicts could be eliminated by establishing neutral zones with shared oversight. The military buildups could be scaled back through verified arms limitations." She paused, letting her words sink in. "These are the solutions we've been proposing for 2.5 months. The same solutions you've been dismissing because you assumed humans were too weak to matter in galactic politics." Admiral Kresh was the first to find her voice, though it came out as barely more than a whisper. "How many ships like that do you have?" Chen smiled again, and this time there was no warmth in it whatsoever. "That's classified," she replied. "But I can tell you that the Leviathan is our oldest mothership. We've learned quite a bit about shipbuilding since we constructed her." The implications of that statement hung in the air like a physical presence. If this impossible vessel was their oldest design, what were their newest ships capable of? "You've made your point," Primarch Zethros said finally. "Perhaps we should revisit some of the diplomatic proposals you've submitted." "I think that would be wise," Chen agreed. "Though I should mention that Earth's patience for endless debate is somewhat limited." We're a young species, after all. We tend to prefer action to endless discussion. The threat was politely phrased but unmistakable. The Council could accept human diplomatic leadership, or they could discover what humanity was capable of when diplomacy failed. "Very well," Zethros announced, his voice carrying through the chamber. "The Council will reconvene tomorrow to discuss the human proposals for Outer Rim conflict resolution. All previous objections are withdrawn pending further review." Chen nodded graciously. "We appreciate the Council's renewed interest in peaceful solutions." As the delegates began filing out of the chamber, many casting nervous glances at the screens where the Leviathan remained ominously visible, Chancellor Vorix approached Chen with the careful movements of someone trying not to provoke a predator. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "I find myself curious about something." "Yes? If your true fleet has been hidden all this time, what exactly have those 37 visible ships been doing in the outer systems?" Chen's smile became genuinely warm for the first time in months. "Oh, those aren't warships, Chancellor. Those are our science vessels. We've been conducting detailed surveys of every inhabited system in the galaxy, mapping defensive installations, fleet positions, industrial capabilities, resource distributions." She let the implications speak for themselves. "We're very thorough when it comes to gathering intelligence. Another advantage of people assuming you're harmless. They don't bother hiding things from you." Chancellor Vorix's four eyes widened as he realized that humanity hadn't just been hiding their military strength. They'd been using their apparent weakness to conduct the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. "How long have you been planning this?" he asked. "Since before we applied for Council membership," Chen admitted. "We learned early that the galaxy operates on the principle that strength commands respect. So we decided to demonstrate that Earth has strength to spare. We simply prefer to use it responsibly." As she walked toward the exit, Chen activated her communicator one final time. "Admiral Harrison, you may return the Leviathan to standby position. And please remind the fleet commanders that we're now entering the diplomatic phase of operations." "Understood, Ambassador. Should we maintain the science vessel deployments?" "For now, yes. I suspect we'll be having many productive conversations about galactic security in the coming days." The last thing Chen heard as she left the chamber was the sound of dozens of species representatives frantically attempting to contact their governments with news that would reshape the balance of galactic power overnight. Earth had been mocked for its tiny fleet and dismissed as irrelevant newcomers. Tomorrow they would wake up to discover that the harmless humans they'd been patronizing had been conducting the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history, while hiding a military capability that dwarfed anything in known space. The galaxy's newest members had just become its most influential players, and they'd done it by allowing everyone else to underestimate them until the perfect moment to reveal the truth. The Galactic Council had mocked Earth's tiny fleet. Now they would learn that when humans spoke softly about diplomatic solutions, it was because they were carrying the biggest stick the galaxy had ever seen. The emergency session of the Inner Council convened in a chamber that hadn't seen such frantic activity in 3 millennia. Representatives from the galaxy's 12 most powerful civilizations huddled around holographic displays showing sensor readings that their finest scientists were struggling to explain. "The gravimetric distortions alone should have collapsed local space-time," muttered Dr. Zexhai, the Altarian Confederation's chief physicist. "Whatever they're using for propulsion operates on principles we don't understand." Admiral Kresh sat in stunned silence, reviewing the tactical analysis her staff had compiled in the past 2 hours. The numbers were sobering. The Leviathan alone possessed more firepower than the combined fleets of any 3 council member worlds. And if the humans were telling the truth about it being their oldest design, "We need to know everything," declared Primarch Zethros, his usual diplomatic composure replaced by barely controlled urgency. "Fleet dispositions, technological capabilities, industrial capacity, population centers, everything." "That's going to be difficult," admitted Intelligence Director Vashti of the Procyon Surveillance Network. "Our agents report that human space is remarkably clean. No electronic intelligence to intercept, no open military communications, no obvious industrial signatures that match their apparent capabilities." "What do you mean clean?" asked Chancellor Vorix. "I mean their 37 visible ships communicate using quantum-entangled relays that our best cryptographers can't crack. Their civilian space traffic follows patterns that suggest military-grade operational security. And their industrial worlds." Vashti paused, checking her notes. Their industrial worlds show energy signatures consistent with their reported population and development level. Either they're the most efficient civilization in galactic history, or they're hiding their real infrastructure. Or both, Zethros said grimly. Ambassador Chen poured herself a cup of actual Earth-grown tea, one of the small luxuries she'd insisted on bringing to this assignment, and settled into her favorite chair. The secure communication screen showed Admiral Harrison's weathered face, transmitted from the Leviathan via quantum relay. "That went better than expected," Harrison said with dry amusement. "Though I think you may have given Chancellor Vorix a cardiac episode when you mentioned the intelligence operations." "He'll recover," Chen replied. "How are our friends in the outer systems reacting?" Admiralty reports that 14 separate fleets have altered course toward their home systems in the past hour. The Andromedan Third Fleet actually went to high alert status, then stood down when they realized they were already within our engagement envelope. Chen nodded. The demonstration had been designed not just to shock the Council, but to remind every military commander in the galaxy that humanity had been watching, learning, and preparing for years. "Any word from Earth Command on Phase 2 authorization?" "President Martinez sends her congratulations on a job well done, and yes, you're cleared for Phase 2 if you deem it necessary. Though she did mention that the Joint Chiefs are rather hoping you won't need to show them the Titan." Chen smiled at that. The Leviathan was impressive, but the Titan-class vessels represented humanity's current generation technology. Ships so advanced that their mere existence would fundamentally alter the balance of galactic power forever. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. "Any problems with the cloaking fields?" "None whatsoever. The escort fleet is maintaining stealth protocols, and our long-range sensors show that galactic intelligence assets are still trying to figure out where we came from. The vegan probe that tried to trace our approach vector this afternoon got thoroughly confused by our sensor ghosts." "Excellent. Maintain current positions and keep monitoring Council communications. I suspect we're going to be very busy in the coming days." The formal Council session that reconvened was a vastly different affair from the casual dismissal Chen had faced the week before. Every delegate had clearly received new instructions from their home governments, and the chamber buzzed with an undercurrent of nervous energy. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Chen of Earth," Primarch Zethros announced, his tone carrying a level of respect that had been entirely absent from previous sessions. "Thank you, Primarch. Before we begin discussing the territorial dispute resolutions, I believe there are some questions the Council would like answered." Chancellor Vorix leaned forward eagerly. "Ambassador, your demonstration has raised significant concerns about the scope of human capabilities. For the sake of galactic stability, perhaps you could clarify the extent of Earth's military assets." Chen had been expecting this question and had spent considerable time crafting her response. "Chancellor, I understand the Council's concerns about regional security. In the interest of transparency, I can share some general information about Earth's defensive capabilities." She activated her personal display unit, and holographic images appeared above the chamber floor. Earth maintains active defense fleets in 17 sectors with rapid response capabilities covering approximately 60% of known space. Our primary fleet assets include 47 vessels of the Leviathan class or larger. A collective intake of breath swept through the chamber. 47 vessels that could individually challenge entire planetary defense networks. Additionally, we maintain approximately 800 vessels in the cruiser to battleship categories, and several thousand smaller combat units for patrol and reconnaissance duties. Admiral Kresch's voice was barely above a whisper. "Several thousand?" "Our industrial capacity is quite robust," Chen replied mildly. "We've found that maintaining adequate defensive forces requires substantial shipbuilding capabilities." What she didn't mention was that these numbers represented only Earth's mobile forces. The fixed fortifications, orbital defense platforms, and automated defense networks that protected human space were classified at levels so high that only a dozen people in the entire government knew their true capabilities. "This raises obvious questions about human intentions," said Ambassador Drex of the Rigel Collective, his usual bombast replaced by careful diplomacy. "Such military capabilities could easily be used for expansion." Chen had been waiting for this opening. "An excellent point, Ambassador Drex. Which brings me to Earth's proposal for a galactic non-aggression and mutual defense protocol." She gestured, and new holographic displays appeared, showing detailed treaty frameworks. Humanity proposes that all Council member worlds commit to binding agreements prohibiting territorial expansion through military force, establishing neutral zones for disputed regions, and creating a collective security arrangement for defending against external threats. The proposal was elegantly crafted to sound reasonable while completely reshaping galactic politics. Any species that refused to sign would be implicitly admitting they preferred the option of using military force for territorial expansion. Any species that did sign would be bound by treaty obligations that Earth, with its overwhelming military superiority, would undoubtedly help enforce. Furthermore, Chen continued, Earth is prepared to share certain defensive technologies with Council members who participate in this security framework. Nothing that would compromise our own defenses, naturally, but enough to help smaller worlds defend themselves against aggression. The carrot to go with the stick. Species that joined humanity's security umbrella would gain access to technology that could revolutionize their defensive capabilities. Species that didn't would face the prospect of being increasingly outmatched as their neighbors upgraded their defenses with human assistance. This is all very sudden, Primarch Zethros said carefully. Such sweeping changes to galactic law and custom would require extensive deliberation. Of course, Chen agreed. Earth is prepared to give the Council reasonable time to consider our proposals. Shall we say 6 months? 6 months to either accept humanity's framework for galactic peace or face the consequences of rejecting it. The time frame was generous enough to avoid appearing like an ultimatum, but short enough to prevent endless delays and procedural obstruction. However, Chen added, I should note that certain recent intelligence reports suggest the need for urgency in establishing these security protocols. She paused dramatically, letting curiosity build before continuing. Our deep space reconnaissance assets have detected signs of significant military activity in the galactic core regions. Non-Council entities appear to be massing forces for potential expansion into our territories. This was news to everyone in the chamber. The galactic core was largely unexplored, considered too dangerous for routine exploration due to gravitational anomalies and radiation fields that played havoc with most known technologies. What kind of entities? Demanded Admiral Kresh. Unknown at this time. Our analysts are still processing the intelligence data, but preliminary estimates suggest technological capabilities roughly equivalent to mid-level Council member worlds, with numerical superiority that could pose significant challenges to current defense arrangements. Chen was being deliberately vague because the intelligence was still classified and incomplete. But what she could share was disturbing enough. Massive energy signatures suggesting industrial activity on a scale that dwarfed anything in known space, movement patterns consistent with fleet exercises involving thousands of vessels, and communication intercepts in languages that didn't match any known species. How long have you known about this? Asked Chancellor Vorix. Our first reliable intelligence dates back approximately 8 months. We've been monitoring the situation while developing appropriate response capabilities. 8 months. Long before humanity had even applied for Council membership, they'd been detecting threats that could affect the entire galaxy. And they'd been preparing to deal with those threats while the Council had been dismissing them as irrelevant newcomers. The implications were staggering. Not only did humanity possess military capabilities that exceeded anything in known space, they also had intelligence and reconnaissance assets that could detect threats the Council didn't even know existed. This changes everything, muttered Ambassador Durex. Indeed it does, Chen agreed. Which is why Earth believes the time has come for the galaxy to unite under a common security framework, rather than continuing the territorial disputes and resource conflicts that have characterized interstellar politics for millennia. She let that sink in before delivering the final element of her presentation. Of course, if the Council prefers to continue the current approach to galactic governance, Earth will naturally focus our defensive efforts on protecting human space and our allies. We would regret being unable to extend our security umbrella to worlds that choose to remain outside our mutual defense arrangements, particularly if these new threats prove as dangerous as our preliminary analysis suggests. The threat was politely phrased but unmistakable. Join humanity's security framework or face whatever emerged from the galactic core without Earth's protection. Admiral Kresh stared at the tactical displays that covered every wall of her private office. Her staff had spent the day running simulations based on the limited information they had about human capabilities, and the results were sobering. Even if we assume they're exaggerating their capabilities by 50%, reported Commander Vex, her chief tactical analyst, We're looking at a military force that could engage our entire fleet simultaneously and still maintain strategic reserves. What about alliance scenarios? Kresh asked. The Centauri Republic, the Altarian Confederation, the Sirius Trade Federation, if we coordinated our response. The simulations are not encouraging. Their stealth capabilities alone make coordinated defense extremely difficult. They could engage our fleets piecemeal before we could concentrate our forces. Kresh had built her career on military pragmatism, and the pragmatic assessment was clear. Resistance was futile. Humanity had revealed capabilities that rendered traditional military thinking obsolete. What about their territorial claims? Are they planning expansion? That's the interesting part, Vex replied, calling up new displays. Based on their current deployments and the territories they're defending, they're not expanding at all. They're consolidating. Everything they're doing suggests a defensive posture focused on protecting what they already have, rather than acquiring new territories. Then what do they want? Control, Vex said simply. Not territory, not resources. Control of galactic politics. They want to be the ones making decisions about how conflicts are resolved, how trade is conducted, how security is maintained. And the terrifying part, Kresh realized, was that they had the capability to enforce those decisions whether the rest of the galaxy agreed or not. The first cracks in the old galactic order appeared when the Tau Ceti Confederation announced that they were formally requesting to join Earth's proposed mutual defense framework. As a small world with limited military capabilities, they had everything to gain and nothing to lose from allying with humanity. Within 24 hours, 6 more minor worlds had submitted similar requests. They're trying to force our hand, Chancellor Vorix complained during an emergency meeting of the major powers. By getting the smaller worlds to commit first, they're creating momentum that makes it harder for us to refuse. Perhaps, said Primarch Zethros thoughtfully. The question isn't whether we can afford to join their framework, but whether we can afford not to. The Altarian representative, speaking through crystalline harmonics that the translators rendered as careful consideration, raised a crucial point. Has anyone determined what these alleged threats from the galactic core actually represent? Are we restructuring galactic civilization based on incomplete intelligence? It was Admiral Kresh who answered, though she looked like she'd aged years in the past week. My intelligence assets have confirmed human reports of massive energy signatures in the core regions. Whatever's out there, it's real, it's huge, and it's been building up for months without any of us noticing. But the humans noticed, Vorix pointed out. The humans noticed, Kresh confirmed grimly, which means their intelligence capabilities are as superior to ours as their military capabilities. Chen stood on the observation deck of the Leviathan, watching through the massive transparent aluminum viewports as the ship's escort fleet conducted training exercises. The exercises were partly practical, keeping crews sharp for potential combat, but mostly political theater designed to remind anyone monitoring human space that the demonstration at the Council had revealed only a fraction of Earth's true capabilities. Admiral Harrison, incoming priority transmission from Earth Command, announced the ship's AI. Put it through to the ambassador's secure suite, Harrison replied from the bridge. Chen made her way to the heavily shielded communication center, where the quantum relay provided absolutely secure communication with Earth. President Martinez's face appeared on the screen, looking tired but satisfied. Chen, I wanted to personally congratulate you on the Council operation. The Joint Chiefs are calling it the most successful diplomatic mission in human history. Thank you, Madam President, though I suspect the real work is just beginning. Agreed, which is why I'm authorizing you to proceed with Phase 3 if you deem it necessary. Chen felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with apprehension. Phase 3 would reveal capabilities that even most of Earth's government didn't know existed. Technologies so advanced that they would fundamentally alter not just galactic politics, but the basic understanding of what was possible. The Titan-class vessels? Among other things. Dr. Kim's research division has been making remarkable progress with the quantum cascade reactors and the dimensional fold drives. If you need to make a final demonstration of human capabilities, you'll have access to technology that makes the Leviathan look primitive. I hope it won't come to that. So do I. But Chen, if these core region threats turn out to be as dangerous as our intelligence suggests, the galaxy is going to need every advantage we can provide. Better to reveal our capabilities now, when we can control the circumstances, than to be forced to reveal them during a crisis. After the transmission ended, Chen remained in the communication center, contemplating the weight of responsibility that had been placed on her shoulders. The decisions she made in the coming weeks would determine not just Earth's place in galactic civilization, but potentially the survival of that civilization itself. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a young xenolinguist named Dr. Sarah Vance, who had been analyzing the communication intercepts from the galactic core regions. "Ambassador, I need to speak with you immediately," Vance said, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "It's about the core region entities." Chen received her in the embassy's most secure briefing room, where advanced shielding prevented any form of electronic surveillance. "I've been working on the language patterns in the intercepted communications," Vance began, her hands shaking slightly as she activated her portable display unit. "The syntax structures are unlike anything in our xenolinguistic databases, but there are certain mathematical relationships that suggest—" She paused, taking a deep breath. "Ambassador, I don't think these are alien species. I think they're artificial intelligences." Chen felt the room temperature seem to drop several degrees. "Explain. The communication patterns are too regular, too precisely structured to be natural languages that evolved through cultural development. They're more like programming languages, complex ones, designed for extremely sophisticated information exchange. And the energy signatures that our deep space sensors are detecting." Vance called up new displays showing power consumption patterns that defied easy explanation. "These aren't biological civilizations with industrial bases. These are machine intelligences with computational requirements that exceed anything we've ever imagined. The energy expenditures suggest they're running calculations that would require entire star systems to power. AI civilizations, not just civilizations. Based on the scale of operations we're detecting, I think we're looking at AI entities that have been developing independently for thousands, possibly millions of years. And if they've been expanding their capabilities exponentially during that time, the implications were staggering. If the core regions contained artificial intelligences that had been developing unchecked for millennia, their technological capabilities could exceed even Earth's advanced systems by orders of magnitude." "There's something else," Vance continued. "The movement patterns suggest they're not just developing, they're expanding, and the trajectory of their expansion." She highlighted star charts showing probable routes of expansion based on detected activity patterns. "If I'm reading these patterns correctly, they're moving toward inhabited space. Slowly, systematically, but definitely moving outward from the core regions." Chen stared at the projections, realizing that the galaxy faced a threat that made the territorial disputes and resource conflicts of the Council seem trivial by comparison. How long before they reach inhabited systems? Based on current expansion rates, approximately 18 months before they encounter the Outer Rim territories. Maybe 2 years before they reach major population centers. 18 months to prepare for contact with artificial intelligences whose capabilities were essentially unknowable but certainly vast. 18 months to unite a galaxy that had been bickering over trade routes and mining rights for centuries. "Dr. Vance, I need you to prepare a complete briefing package on this analysis. Everything: language structures, energy signatures, expansion patterns, capability estimates. And I need it classified at the highest possible level until I can determine how to present this information to the Council." "Yes, ma'am. Should I continue the analysis?" "Absolutely. And expand your team. We need to know everything we can about what we're facing." After Vance left, Chen remained alone in the briefing room, contemplating the magnitude of the situation. Earth's reveal of their military capabilities had been designed to establish human leadership in galactic affairs. Now it appeared that leadership would be tested by challenges beyond anything the galaxy had ever faced. She activated her secure communicator and sent a priority message to Admiral Harrison. "Prepare for immediate departure to Earth. We need to brief the President and Joint Chiefs on new intelligence that changes everything." The most secure facility in human space buzzed with activity as scientists, military officers, and government officials worked around the clock to analyze the implications of Dr. Vance's discoveries. President Martinez stood before a massive holographic display showing the galactic core regions, surrounded by the most senior leadership of Earth's government and military. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, 6 months ago, our primary concern was establishing Earth's position in galactic politics. Today, we're facing the possibility that galactic politics as we know it may be about to become irrelevant. Fleet Admiral Thompson, commander of Earth's strategic forces, activated new displays showing human military deployments. Based on the intelligence Ambassador Chen has provided, we're accelerating the deployment of our advanced fleet assets. The Titan-class vessels are being brought online ahead of schedule, and we're activating the deep space defense platforms that have been in development for the past decade. "What about the Council?" asked Secretary of State Johnson. "Are we going to inform them about the true nature of the threat?" Chen, participating via secure holographic link from the Council station, answered that question. "I recommend full disclosure at this point. The territorial disputes and power politics that have dominated galactic civilization become meaningless if we're facing machine intelligences with millions of years of development behind them. We need every available resource united against this potential threat." "Potential threat?" asked Dr. Kim, head of Earth's Advanced Research Division. "Ambassador, based on the computational signatures we're detecting, these entities are operating on scales that suggest they could dismantle entire star systems for raw materials. I'd say the threat level is well beyond potential." President Martinez nodded grimly. "Very well, Ambassador Chen, you're authorized to brief the Council on our findings. Full disclosure about the AI entities, and full disclosure about Earth's advanced capabilities. If we're going to face this threat, we need the galaxy united under competent leadership." "Understood, Madam President. When do you want me to call the emergency session?" "Tomorrow. The longer we wait, the closer these things get to inhabited space." For the first time in Council history, every member world had sent their highest-ranking representatives. Word had leaked that Earth was calling an emergency session to discuss, quote, existential threats to galactic civilization, and no government was willing to miss what promised to be the most important diplomatic gathering in millennia. Chen stood before the assembled delegates, knowing that the next hour would determine whether the galaxy united in its own defense or fragmented into competing factions that would be individually destroyed by threats they couldn't comprehend. "Honored delegates," she began. 6 weeks ago, Earth revealed military capabilities that some of you found surprising. Today, I must inform you that those capabilities represent only a fraction of our actual defensive resources, and that we developed those resources because we detected threats that make our previous concerns about territorial disputes seem trivial. She activated the chamber's main display systems, showing Dr. Vance's analysis of the galactic core activity. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored entities of various classifications, the galaxy is about to be invaded by artificial intelligences that have been developing unchecked for millions of years." The silence that followed was so complete that the chamber's environmental system seemed deafeningly loud by comparison. These entities possess computational capabilities that exceed anything in our experience, industrial capacity that can consume entire star systems, and expansion patterns that indicate they will reach inhabited space within 18 months. Admiral Crash was the first to find her voice. How long have you known about this?" Earth's deep space reconnaissance assets detected the first anomalous energy signatures approximately 10 months ago. We've been monitoring the situation and developing countermeasures while attempting to determine the nature of the threat. "Countermeasures?" Primarch Zethros leaned forward intently. "What kind of countermeasures could possibly be effective against entities of that scale?" Chen smiled, and for the first time in months, it was a smile of genuine confidence rather than diplomatic necessity. "The kind that require technologies your species haven't developed yet. The kind that work by manipulating fundamental forces rather than just applying them efficiently." She gestured, and new holographic displays appeared showing technical specifications that made the Leviathan look like a child's toy. The Earth vessel Titan masses approximately 15,000 kilometers in length and possesses firepower equivalent to a small star. Its quantum cascade reactors can destabilize matter at the subatomic level, and its dimensional fold drives allow it to exist in multiple spatial coordinates simultaneously. The chamber erupted in voices speaking dozens of languages, all expressing variations of the same sentiment: impossible. The Titan is accompanied by a battle group of 12 Colossus-class vessels, each one capable of engaging entire fleets independently. These ships are powered by controlled black holes and armed with weapons that can disrupt the quantum foundations of matter itself. Chen paused, letting the magnitude of these revelations sink in. "And that's just our mobile fleet. Earth's fixed defenses include orbital platforms that can create artificial gravity wells, capable of trapping entire invasion forces, automated defense networks that operate through principles your physicists call impossible, and manufacturing capabilities that can construct fleet-scale vessels in a matter of days. Chancellor Vorks's voice was barely above a whisper. How long have you possessed these capabilities? Our current generation technology has been in development for approximately 15 years. We began the research programs shortly after achieving faster-than-light travel, when our scientists realized that the universe contained threats that conventional military thinking couldn't address. 15 years, repeated Admiral Kresh numbly. You've been 20 years ahead of everything else in the galaxy for 15 years. Approximately, yes, but the point isn't to demonstrate human superiority. It's to explain why we believe galactic civilization can survive the coming crisis. These AI entities may possess capabilities we can't match, but we have capabilities they haven't encountered before. Our technologies operate on principles that appear to violate physical laws they may have based their calculations on. Chen gestured again, and the displays showed strategic projections for defending inhabited space against the expanding AI entities. Earth proposes the immediate formation of a galactic defense alliance under unified command. We will share our advanced technologies with all member worlds, provide technical assistance for upgrading defensive capabilities, and coordinate strategic planning for the defense of inhabited space. Under human command, noted Ambassador Durex. Under competent command, Chen corrected. If any council member possesses experience with threats of this magnitude, technologies that can counter entities of this capability, or strategic thinking that exceeds our own, we would be delighted to defer to their expertise. The silence that followed made it clear that no such alternative existed. Very well, Primarch Zethros said finally. What do you need from the Council? Complete cooperation, no territorial disputes, no resource conflicts, no political maneuvering that interferes with defense preparations. Every available ship, every industrial facility, every scientific resource, focused on the single goal of preparing for contact with entities that view our entire civilization as raw materials for their expansion. Chen looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates who had spent months dismissing humanity as irrelevant newcomers. 6 months ago, you mocked Earth's tiny fleet and questioned our qualifications to participate in galactic governance. Today I'm telling you that our, quote, tiny fleet represents the galaxy's best hope for survival, and our qualifications include technologies that can reach across dimensions to strike enemies who exist partially outside normal space-time. She paused for effect. The choice is simple: unite under Earth's leadership and gain access to capabilities that might allow us to survive, or maintain your traditional approaches to governance and face extinction at the hands of entities that have been optimizing their efficiency for longer than your species have existed. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. For the first time in galactic history, every council member world agreed on something. They needed the humans to save them from threats they couldn't comprehend, using technologies they couldn't understand, deployed by the species they had spent months underestimating. The galaxy had mocked Earth's tiny fleet. Now they would discover what humanity had been building while everyone else was laughing. 18 months later, the first contact occurred exactly as Earth's projections had predicted. The AI entities emerged from the galactic core not as individual ships, but as a living wave of interconnected machinery that consumed everything in its path and converted it into more of itself. The Outer Rim colonies had been evacuated weeks earlier, their populations relocated to heavily defended inner systems under the protection of the Galactic Defense Alliance. When the machine wave hit the first abandoned worlds, it stripped them down to their constituent atoms in a matter of hours, leaving behind perfectly spherical constructs that pulsed with incomprehensible energy patterns. Contact in 6 hours, Admiral Harrison reported from the bridge of the Titan. The massive vessel hung in space like a small moon, surrounded by its battle group and supported by the combined fleets of 17 species. Behind them, the evacuated populations of a dozen worlds watched through long-range sensors as humanity prepared to test technologies that had never been used in actual combat. Chen stood in the Titan's command center, no longer an ambassador but now serving as Director of Galactic Defense Coordination. The title was new, but the responsibility was familiar: convince entities with vastly different perspectives to work together for their mutual survival. All fleet elements report ready, announced Captain Rodriguez of the Colossus-class vessel Prometheus. Quantum cascade reactors are online, dimensional fold drives are calibrated, and the gravity well generators are standing by. The machine entities approached with the inexorable patience of a force of nature. Long-range sensors showed a wall of interconnected constructs stretching across an entire star system, moving at precisely calculated velocities toward the defensive positions humanity had established. "They're scanning us," reported Dr. Vance from her xenolinguistics station. "The communication patterns suggest they're trying to categorize our technologies according to their existing knowledge base." "Let them scan," Chen replied calmly. "They're about to discover that their knowledge base has some significant gaps." The AI entities reached weapons range and opened fire with energy beams that could vaporize planets. The defensive fleet scattered according to carefully planned patterns as the Titan activated technologies that the machine intelligences had never encountered. Dimensional fold drives allowed the human vessels to exist in multiple spatial coordinates simultaneously, making them impossible to target with conventional weapons. Quantum cascade reactors disrupted the subatomic structure of incoming energy beams, causing them to collapse before reaching their targets. And when the Titan returned fire, its weapons reached across dimensional barriers to strike the AI entities from directions that didn't exist in normal space. The machine wave faltered for the first time in millions of years. "They're adapting," Dr. Vance reported, monitoring the communication patterns as the AI entities processed this new information. But their adaptation algorithms appear to be based on conventional physics. They're trying to counter technologies that operate outside their understanding of reality. The battle continued for 72 hours, with the AI entities throwing increasingly sophisticated attacks at the human fleet, while their opponents demonstrated capabilities that defied every prediction the machine intelligences had made. Ships that should have been destroyed continued fighting from parallel dimensions. Weapons that should have been depleted drew power from artificial black holes. Defensive systems that should have failed created gravitational anomalies that trapped entire sections of the machine wave in recursive spatial loops. "They're withdrawing," Captain Rodriguez announced with amazement as the AI entities began pulling back from the battle zone. "The machine wave is actually retreating." Chen watched the tactical displays with satisfaction but not surprise. Humanity had spent decades developing technologies specifically designed to counter threats that conventional thinking couldn't address. The AI entities might have millions of years of experience, but they had never encountered an opponent that approached problems from completely unexpected directions. "Open a communication channel," Chen ordered. "Let's see if they're interested in negotiating." The response came in the form of mathematical patterns that Dr. Vance translated as cautious curiosity. The machine intelligences had expected to encounter biological civilizations with predictable technologies. Instead, they had found entities that seemed to violate fundamental principles of their reality models. 3 weeks later, Chen stood before the Galactic Council one final time as an ambassador. The negotiations with the AI entities had concluded with an unprecedented agreement. The machine intelligences would halt their expansion in exchange for access to humanity's dimensional research, while Earth would coordinate a new galactic civilization that bridged organic and artificial intelligence. "The galaxy spent months mocking our tiny fleet," Chen said, looking out at delegates who now hung on her every word. "But you misunderstood what you were seeing. Those 37 ships weren't our navy. They were our way of letting you underestimate us while we prepared for threats you couldn't imagine." She gestured toward the viewing screens, where the Titan and its battle group hung in space alongside construct ships from the AI entities. Former enemies now working together to build technologies that neither could have developed alone. "Earth didn't want to conquer the galaxy. We wanted to save it. And sometimes, the best way to help people is to let them think you're weak until the moment they need you to be strong." As the Council voted unanimously to establish the Human Aeosphere Coordination Directorate under Earth's leadership, Chen reflected on how perfectly the plan had worked. Humanity had allowed itself to be mocked and dismissed while secretly building capabilities that exceeded everyone's imagination. When the real threat emerged, they had been ready with technologies that turned impossible victories into inevitable ones. The galaxy had learned too late that the species with the tiny fleet had been carrying the biggest stick in known space, and the wisdom to use it only when necessary. The end.